I think we can get started slowly, and I can introduce the event first of all and welcome everyone, and I'll keep on admitting people as we go. Um, but first things first, let me introduce myself. My name is Colombe. I'm the co-founder of Atlas Movement, the movement that is hosting this event. As I just mentioned, we have members in 135 countries that come together, unite across borders to try to tackle what we call survival threats. Survival threats are climate change, dictatorships, pandemics, topics that impact us all across the world and that we would tackle much better if we actually work together. And as part of this, I'm thrilled to host this online town hall with Dr. Habiba Sarabi that I'll introduce in just a moment about what our countries and the United Nations can do better to support Afghan women and girls. And I was actually in the room at the UN when I heard you speak a couple of months ago. And I really wanted to have you here because a lot of people across the world have followed the takeover again of Afghanistan by the Taliban. And a lot of people have repeatedly said, how can we better stand by Afghan women and girls, as we've seen news of the fact that women can no longer speak in public, can no longer go to the gym, can no longer go to the salon, and that they are banned from education, banned from public life. And we've seen that governments and the UN fail to take action, or enough action, I believe, to support women and girls and people in general there. And so after discussions, I thought who better to invite than you to answer some of our questions. And I've received so many on social media already, and to shed light on what is happening in Afghanistan and give you advice on what leaders should be doing and should be doing better. But first, let me introduce our incredible guest. And, now I wouldn't do her honor, but I'll try to do it in a couple of seconds. And Dr. Habiba Sarabi is a former member of the peace negotiation team of Afghanistan. And she's a hematologist, a politician, a reformer. She was appointed as the first female governor of a province, of any province in Afghanistan. And she previously served as Minister of Women's Affairs, as Minister of Culture and Education. She's been a tireless advocate for women's rights, for the environment, and she had a lot of victories. And obviously, today she keeps on being a very outspoken advocate for women's rights across Afghanistan and worldwide. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I think, as I mentioned, you've had an incredible career. And I think a career in a way that spotlights the history of Afghanistan, right? You lived in the first pre-Taliban Afghanistan. You then came and helped in governing and changing the country, in giving hope to women and girls. You were a symbol of what this, and are still a symbol of what this can look like. And now again, with a Taliban regime in place, you have to start advocating for all of those hard-won rights again. Can you tell us a bit, for people that are joining that are not familiar with the situation, what has been happening since the US withdrew, and what are the latest developments and your thought on the situation?
Thank you very much, Colombo. Let me to thanks from Atlas Network and congratulate you and your colleague and friends that made such a strong movement. And let me to say good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to all the participants that they have been participated from different part of the world and joining to this meeting. It's a pleasure and honor for me to speak about Afghanistan and about the situation in Afghanistan and Afghan women with you people. And I hope that this kind of communication and talking can make some difference, can make some change to the policy of the different countries. So I made some talking point from the very past, if I may, because the audience should know about the history of Afghanistan, what happened in the past, and why today is Taliban in the power, that oppressing all the half of the citizen and the women from all the sides of work in Afghanistan. So during the 60s, we had the kingdom. After that, 1978, excuse me, 1973, the cousin of the king made a coup, and of course, the king fled from Afghanistan and stayed in Italy. And then 1978, another regime, which was supported by the Soviet Union on that time, set up in Afghanistan and took power. And the real Cold War started in Afghanistan between the West and East. So after, in 1992, there was a peace deal, which called the Geneva peace deal between the United States and the Soviet Union. So why I'm going to that part? Because that peace deal was on peace agreement was not inclusive. So only the two countries set up and made the deal and agreement between the Russia, or the Soviet Union troops withdraw from Afghanistan. And then the Mujahideen group that's supported by the United States, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Gulf country. And they had the base in Pakistan and made several madrasa. I'm sure that the audience, my friends, that they are listening to me, they know about madrasa. Madrasa is a school of religious that the people, the children are going there only, I mean, getting education on religious. Of course, most of the time, this education is not the proper education. It's only very dark-minded education that teach the children in a very narrow-minded and also a kind of fundamental and extreme ideology. Teach them the ideology of extremism. So when Mujahideen took power in Afghanistan, they started to fight with each other, and a very severe civil war started among different group, and the people unfortunately were the victim of this civil war. And 1996, the Taliban took power because the people were fed up and they were very tired from all the conflict and war in Afghanistan. Of course, 1996, when it was the first time of Taliban power, they made the same rule and regulation for women. Immediately, they stopped women to go out, to go to school, even the primary education, to go to work, and all the restriction came, I mean, applied for women. And even for men, they supposed to have the birth, and also they were not allowed to wear the Western style suit and kind of suit and trousers. So they had to have the turban and go regularly to the mosque. If someone couldn't go to the mosque, they could be punished by Taliban. It was the situation in 1996, and so I'm not talking a lot about that period until the September 11th event happened, September 11th in New York, and then United States. Um, uh, After investigation, they thought, of course, there was a kind of announcement by Al Qaeda network that attack, I mean, took place by the support of Al Qaeda. So United States was looking for Osama bin Laden, who was the leader of Al Qaeda. He was hiding in the Afghanistan Tora Bora mountain, and the United States wanted to hand over Osama bin Laden to the United States authority, but Taliban denied and didn't hand over or disclose Osama bin Laden. And then United States by I mean, by support of the Northern Alliance, a small group of resistance were present in the north part of Afghanistan. With the support of this group, they attacked the Taliban and removed Taliban from Afghanistan. And after 2000, from 2001 up to 2020, the new Islamic Democrat, new Islamic Republic of Afghanistan established, and we had the constitution, which was one of the best constitution in the region, and women had equal rights with others, and there was a clear article in the constitution that men and women has the equal rights. So there was some positive change in the life of women, women in the parliament. There was a quota system for women to go to the parliament, and it was written on the constitution. At least two representatives should come from each province, which was made 26% of parliament from women. So women in the provincial council, women in the business, women in education, and women in the healthcare, the progress was immediately, rapidly happened, and really it was, we can say that it was one of the golden time for women in Afghanistan. We had hundreds of young generation, young women, they were able to go abroad and got education on the master degree in PhD, and returned back to the country for the development, for the construction of the country. So a million of girls could go to school. So we had very good, time. Why all these achievements, demolished and disappear? Because of there was many reasons. One of them, the corruption among the Afghan authorities. We have to acknowledge that. This is really true that the corruption was one of the biggest problems, but it was not the only problem, because our American friends are saying that it was due to corruption and nepotism. So this collapse happened, but it was not true. The corruption among the Afghan authority was true, but we cannot ignore the corruption among the international community. But I'm not going on detail, not to take most of your time. So the other thing which was very important for this, of course, the United States want to withdraw their troops. This is also a fact that Afghan government, uh, I mean, uh, didn't accept, or it was not kind of imagination among the Afghan authority or leaders that maybe the United States will not leave Afghanistan, so which was wrong imagination. And the United States want to withdraw from Afghanistan. So the agenda of peace talk was on base of the withdrawal of the troops from Afghanistan. So they started in 2019. They started negotiation. The United States directly with Taliban. They started the negotiation in Doha, Qatar, for the kind of agreement. And after that agreement, one of the item of that agreement that the foreign troops, which was the NATO and the US, should withdraw from Afghanistan. Of course, after 1 year negotiation on February 2020, they signed the agreement that the United States will withdraw from Afghanistan, and in Afghanistan, there will be no base for the terrorism, and the intra-Afghan dialogue will start. On base of that item that the intra-Afghan dialogue will start, there was as the president decided to announce a delegation for peace talk, and the delegation was out of 21 members. The delegation was combined from 21 members, and out of 21 members, 4 women were included. But there was no any single woman with the Taliban side. Of course, their delegation was also 21 members, but no any women included the Taliban side. September 2020, the negotiation started in Doha. There was a big ceremony in Doha for inauguration on several, the foreign minister of United States attended and different other from different other countries, the ministry level, from foreign ministry level attended, and also some even attended virtually from different countries. All these state member and state minister were talking about the inclusion government and also the rule of women, except the one or two countries they didn't mention about the women's rights. Pakistan was one of them, and I think even in the United States didn't mention clearly about the women's rights issue in their statement. The negotiation started, but of course there was a question from Colombo, which was that if we as a women were at the center of the discussion or not. We were selected or nominated by president, but of course it was one part of that, and the other part was, which was very very important, that we have we wanted to be everywhere. We wanted to make a seat for our side, for ourselves. We wanted to be at the center. If they wanted to us, or the other member, if they wanted us, or either wanted or not wanted, but that it was our obligation, our responsibility to be everywhere at the center. So out of this 21 member of the delegation, 5 members selected as a contact group. That the contact group was a smaller group that from both sides we wanted to talk on the certain issue. So among this contact group also there were one woman, should be attended to that contact group. So we wanted to be at a different level of the talk. For example, there was the different. I'm sorry, sometimes words
No worries
are
at all.
escaping from my mind. Uh, there were different working group at the delegation. The policy working group, the human rights and women's rights working group, and of course minority was included to that, and also the media group, and there was another working group for this for ceasefire. So we wanted for each of the working group, one lady should be attend to that one, because we wanted to be on the picture that what's going on within the working group, and if they wanted to make some decision, we wanted to be a part of that decision making. So why this the negotiation didn't succeed? Because parallel to that negotiation after January 2021, so there were so many parallel events happened. One of them, for example, at the same time, the election, the United States election was one of the issues, but parallelly there was several other meetings happened. For example, the Moscow format, and then there was supposed to be a meeting in Istanbul, and people from our side, or from the public, and also from Taliban side should join to the Istanbul meeting, and there will be a kind of agreement and final agreement, and they will sign the agreement. But the Taliban refused to go to Istanbul, and that process also rejected by Taliban. There were another meeting that called TRICOM meeting, which was held by Russia, Pakistan, China, and some other countries. So all of these uh, uh, parallelly happened at the same time, because there was already an agreement between the United States and also with Taliban. The Taliban, during the discussion, during the negotiation, during the talk with the contact group, the Taliban taught a kind of a kind of upper hand. They had upper hand, and also they were talking. They were thinking that they are the winner. They already victory of the war. They clearly sometimes say that we defeated United States and NATO. So just they wanted a kind of to get a kind of legitimacy from this stuff. Most of the time they were, I mean, killing the time and not and didn't want to come regularly to for negotiation. So the uh, already agreement between the United States and Taliban was one of the reasons. The announcement of withdrawal from Afghanistan was the second reason for the unsuccessful of this negotiation or this peace deal, because the announcement of withdrawal had a very bad effect the Afghan military, and they lost their morale because the withdrawal didn't have any clear plan that what will be the next plan for the withdrawal, and also the Taliban took advantage from that announcement, and they had a kind of every day-to-day achievement on the district level military wise. So even there were some rumor spreaded among the military that you shouldn't fight because there is a peace deal going on, and not necessary that you have to lose your life. So some of them, when they gave up for fighting against Taliban because of that rumor that spread among this military people. And of course, the corruption was another reason for that, because they couldn't get ammunition, they couldn't get food and other items that they needed. So in this case, the morale of the military were they lost their morale, and at the end, the president left the country or escaped from Afghanistan, and Taliban took power without ending the peace deal. Actually, the peace deal or the peace talk didn't. After that, all these things happened. There was not a kind of regular talk among the two groups or two delegations, and the Taliban took power in Afghanistan.
Thank you so much. No, thank you so much for summarizing the history. I'm already receiving quite a few questions on this part, but since you gave us almost a full history of what has happened, before we deep dive maybe a bit into the peace deal, into your role in the negotiations, could you summarize what's happening right now in Afghanistan? So since the Taliban took power, what is the situation for women's rights? What is the situation for rights in general? And how, there's a humanitarian crisis happening. How is the Taliban able or unable to respond to this? And how do you feel that, let's start with this. I have 100 more questions, but let's start with this.
Mm-hmm. Before the peace talk started on September 2020, on June 2019, there was an intra-Afghan dialogue. I mean, 35 delegations from Afghan government side or from Republic side, and 55 or more or less from Taliban side. We had another intra-Afghan dialogue. It was not a kind of peace deal. It was just a kind of introduction or track two that we could come together. On that time, many of these Taliban leaders that they were attended to Qatar, to Doha, they were they wanted to show that they changed. Their attitude was so humble. Some of them, they wanted to show that they are agree with education. They are even agree with the style of clothes, and we have so many video from even from that time that existing with our friends or Afghan women, that Abbas Astanizai even was telling that your clothes or your style of dressing it's Islamic. We don't have any objection on that. So, and the representative of the U.S. for peace, who was Zalmay Khalilzad, he was also sharing or saying among, spreading that idea among Afghan people that now the Taliban is not the same Taliban on the during 90s. They have been changed, and so there will be education and freedom for speech and oh, generally he wanted to say that Taliban changed. But unfortunately, when the Taliban took power, from the day second, they started to avoid women to go out. So when they made ordered the women that not to go out. There was several demonstration from protests from women's side, um, even in front of the palace and in front and in the middle of the city. There were so many protests. So slowly they banned the education and they banned women to go even the sport clubs and they banned the women beauty parlor and they banned the women to go to the park and they made restriction after restriction for women. And of course, the only thing that they allowed that the girls up to sixth grade they can go to school. Recently, just 2 days ago, there was another decree or order from Taliban side that if a girl over 13 years old at the age of 13, so if she is at the sixth grade or fifth grade, she cannot go to school because she is proper for marriage. Believe me, this is the order that Taliban issued. So uh, the medical nursing and medical institute for midwifery, these were the only institute that it was open that women could go and they were very happy to get some uh, to get education and to go to work and get some money for the livelihood of their family. So 2 days ago, again, they stopped women and released another order that all the institutes, the medical institute and nursing school and midwifery, now they closed. So even they closed the midwifery school. I don't know that how they can get their female family member to the doctor. So this is a big question. And there was um, a conference or a big meeting with the international, representative in Kabul, and the acting minister of Taliban, Muttaqi, was sharing, okay, we have a lot of achievement, and he was mentioning all the achievement, and I wanted to say that, okay, international community cannot see all our achievement. Only for small things, the international community is focusing on small things. So you know that the women's rights and girls' education, all the human rights, it's a small issue for them. They don't care about that. They don't care about how to serve for the population. They are getting income from the from different from customer service, and sometimes they push the people to get, some custom tax from the people, and also they are getting income from the mine and different other contract that they have, but they just all the income are going to their own pocket, to their own soldier, to their own family member, not to the to the people. The ordinary people are unfortunately suffering from poverty. I can tell you one of the examples. Just I read that one of the very popular newspaper a story of a man that he was with the army, the Afghan military, I mean Republic military before, but because he doesn't have any job, he's going to the market. There will be some labor work for him. He was telling that within a week, only maybe 2 days, I can find the labor work and get some small amount of money. I cannot uh, get or buy even the fresh bread. In Afghanistan, um, some people or some poor people, they are collecting the dry fruit and dry bread from a different place and bringing together, and then this dry bread, mostly before, I mean before this collapse or before the Taliban during Republic and before, the people used to mix with some other veg, grass and give it to the animal. Now these poor people, unfortunately, they are collecting this dry bread and make it wet with water and give it to their children. And so it was very, very horrible. The poverty is one of the biggest problems. And the second, of course, the other biggest problem is the torturing of women that they were protested, that all the protesters are under the risk, and Taliban are following them and arresting them, punishing them. And minority are that, for example, Hazara people. If a woman can be Hazara and also be a protester, she is under big risk and getting tortured with Taliban. And the former militant group or the people who have been worked with the military, they are also under the big risk and uh, arresting by Taliban and torturing even some of them. I mean, people don't know that we are she or he because there were some female police and female at the military side, a military section as well. When they are kidnapping these people and arresting them and torturing and disappear. This is the situation, unfortunately, in Afghanistan.
Thank you so much for explaining it. I mean, the fact that women have basically been disappeared from public life has made headlines across the world, and we clearly haven't seen enough action. I think less people are aware of the fact that on top of it, half of the population of Afghanistan is facing acute food insecurity, if I'm not mistaken. And it's something that too often is forgotten, that too often um, is not mentioned. And it leads to my second question. And for the people in the chat, I'm not ignoring your questions. I'm going to add them into the long list I have of questions. How should we deal with the Taliban? So obviously, the Taliban took power illegitimately, have excluded at least half of the population from having any rights whatsoever. Um, Humanitarian crises are worsening. Climate crises are piling on top of it. It's a situation that, for I think a lot of governments and a lot of UN agencies, is very complicated to even start to understand how to address for a lot of reasons. Number one, aid is needed, I assume, in the country. And so, as such, should they be talking with the Taliban? If so, in what capacity? If I'm not mistaken, the Taliban regime is not the government that is recognized by the United Nations. And the civilian government is still the government recognized by the United Nations. So how should the UN and countries address the Taliban, in what capacity? And I assume, of course, with always Afghan women present in the room advocating for the rights and interests of Afghan women. But do you have recommendations or set of guidelines that intergovernmental institutions and states should follow?
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's very crucial because most of the time the international community won't ask that what we can do. So what's your recommendation for that? First of all, the recognition is one of the biggest tools. It should remain the same position. All the UN and the state member shouldn't think about that to recognize Taliban. This is one of the biggest issues. Of course, humanitarian aid is a great need in Afghanistan, with such a wide range of poverty and the shortage of food and also the drought that last year and this year the people faced, it's also really a big problem. So humanitarian is a need for Afghanistan, but the humanitarian there should be a very, very strong monitoring on the distribution of humanitarian aid. You know that the Taliban made a trick that they register so many new organizations uh, um, for their follower, for their supporter. I mean, many Taliban group they have been registered a new NGOs or new organizations for themselves, and many of this humanitarian aid are going to that organization, and the distribution of aid is not, I mean, fair. Some part of the country cannot get enough. The poverty is a big problem. For example, I know many of how to say many of my relatives and the people whom I know that even they haven't get um, a small portion of food from the humanitarian aid. At the same time, they are so poor. For example, they are begging for money for aid, and even I can cut from my own food allowance or something. $100 for them per month is a big support. I'm sending, I mean, to three family, three family at least, or sometimes four. This the money or the aid, and this is happening with many other Afghan who are I mean outside the country, so they are sending money to Afghan people inside. So that's the aid distribution is not fair inside Afghanistan. Um, so
So
what was
So
I'm
how
sorry, what
how
was the
no worries. I think so. You mentioned states and the UN should not be recognizing the regime.
Mhm.
It should not be giving it the legitimacy, and we must be very careful on how aid is distributed. Um. So how should they address this question? Should they be speaking mainly with local organizations, with local established aid communities? How should they address the topic of getting aid to people in need?
So the monitoring system, they have to make a strong monitoring system how they can distribute the food or the aid item. This is one of the issue. So the other thing that the country made some um, uh, a strong position. You know that to avoid half of population from all the surface of the life, it's gender apartheid. We can say that clearly it's gender apartheid. But some countries took a very, very strong position. The first month ago, during the UNGA, four countries, Germany, Netherlands, Australia, and Canada, that they announced that they will take the case of Taliban or Afghanistan to the Criminal Court of Justice that for gender apartheid. Now, other six countries want to open the case for ICC. This is a strong action. The other country also should join that. And after all this advocacy of Afghan women, this happened, and we are very happy. There was a conference in Vienna from WFA, which was our um, forum, Afghan Women Forum, uh, sorry, Women Forum of Afghanistan. So they announced the Chile mission or the Chile representative in Geneva she announced that position from the 6 other countries. So these are the action that the country are taking. So stay with these countries. The UN also should protect their own resolution and convention. CEDAW is one of the strong convention of UN and 1325 and human rights. So these are the convention and treaties from UN. They have to. The UN should protect that. Should yeah, protect that. Why this convention is not applying to Afghanistan? There should be questioning for that. When I saw the video of Mutaqi, the acting minister of Taliban, that delivering this speech to our international community that we have so much achievement. So people should ask that, okay, with these achievements that you are saying, where is the women? Women are the top of population. Why the women? This is not a small issue that Montaki is sharing that it's the people, the international community is focusing only for small issues. The women's rights is not a small issue. These are the action that the international community and the other member states should be taking.
And I assume from what you said as well, making gender apartheid a crime against humanity, right? Which, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the demands of Afghan women civil society that have issued a declaration at the end of the summit this summer.
Yes, definitely, definitely. We are doing all the Afghan women now uh, in diaspora. They are advocating for recognition and to define gender apartheid as a crime against humanity, which is real crime against humanity.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I received a few questions on the climate conference COP that I wanted to ask you. And I'm sure you're aware that the Taliban were invited, not as an official delegation because they are not the recognized state party at the United Nations, but they were invited at COP. I actually very randomly saw them pass 5 meters in front of me. I realized who they were after they passed the ministers of the Taliban. I find it insane. I find it absolutely insane that at a climate conference that is supposed to uphold humanity's future, human rights, and so on, you would see people that are responsible for crimes against humanity, as you just said, for gender apartheid, walking freely. The response that I got a lot of the times when saying this is, why? Shouldn't they speak about climate as well? And what is your take on this? Do you think that on issues, do you think it's, I don't think so, but do you think it's even possible to separate women's rights issues, human rights issues from climate talks? Do you think government should be speaking, even if in a non-official capacity, with the Taliban regime about the climate crisis and climate commitments?
The climate change is very related to women's issue and women's human rights. It says the climate changes if we violate the climate, and so this is violation for human rights and women's rights. The climate change is starting from the home, from family level. So with the poverty, how you can care about the climate change? The people are to keep themselves warm. They are using this uh, used tire. You know, you got it, my point. They use tire of the vehicle that they are destroying when the tire destroyed or damaged. They are threw away, but people are gathering them and burning in their stove uh, for to keep them warm. So the pollution of those fires, that what will be happening. The drought that it's going on in Afghanistan because people are collecting bushes and trees from mountain because of their for their fuel. So it is the cause of poverty and affected the environment. It is climate. So there are so many other reasons that the climate issue is related to human rights and women's rights. And they are making separate this, which is not fair. Which is not fair.
I could not agree more. Do you think, linked to this, that countries under the United Nations should be imposing targeted sanctions on the Taliban regime and Taliban leaders in order to try to halt foreign support or flow of monies or things like this?
I'm not favor on the sanction on the people, sanction on the aid, but for the Taliban leaders, yes. If a state and the people and the international community respect the women's rights and human rights, they have to apply the Taliban leaders' sanction. So they are inviting Taliban and put red carpet for them to come for their conferences. And they are going everywhere. They are going to Qatar, Saudi Arabia, they are going to Norway, they are going to many other countries without any restriction. So there should be um, a clear message from or a clear application from the state member for Taliban leadership sanction.
And I guess you would agree that because I think this summer in June 2024, the UN held a talks with the Taliban in Doha, and I think no women were included, right? If I'm not mistaken, in those talks. You would agree that for countries and the United Nations, any talk whatsoever with the Taliban needs to include Afghan women and Afghan civil society in order to ensure that the voice of the people that are not included in the room in the first place is represented.
Yeah, the UN unfortunately acknowledging the Taliban. When the Secretary General, Deputy Secretary General went to Afghanistan, met with Muttaqi, the de facto authority, and the Taliban made some I'm sorry, forgot the word. I mean,
Demands?
pardon?
Demands? Is it demands?
Some demands or some kind of wishing, not wishing to, they made, oh, I'm sorry. They said to, for example, and I can give you the example, I forgot the word. They said to Rosemary DiCarlo that I will go to Doha conference if but civil society and women should not be on the same
Ultimatum.
meeting. Yes. So it was acceptable for UN. Why? So they avoid women and civil society from the same meeting. And I was invited for that, but I didn't go. And I condemned because there was a kind of side event. There was not main event that I could go. And the agenda was not the same agenda that Taliban was participated. It is a kind of acknowledgement for Taliban. They are acknowledging Taliban. They are respecting Taliban. They are obeying Taliban. So it means that any dictatorship regime can be respectable for the others. So we have to think about that. We have to think that what will be happen if they can put their feet to Afghan women's shoes, how they can, what they can think about that, how they can
and it shows once more that women's rights are a back issue, a back foot, that it's not worth including in the process. Let me ask you, I have two more questions before I let you go. One is from Eric, who's asking, so we talked about women's rights a lot, right? He's asking how the situation for men is, in the sense, can men afford to be more vocal in support of women's rights than women? Is the repression just as strong against them? Is there, on social media, I see quite a few videos of women still protesting with signs, demanding education, women still chanting when they were banned from singing, and so on. Is there widespread support among men, and can they do more? or the same?
The main rights are not also very, very ideal. So sometimes there are pressure to them to not use the tie or necktie, or for example, to have the cultural clothes, Afghani clothes, or not wearing suits. I have seen, it was the first year that I have seen a video that a young man in the public beaten by Taliban, slapping by Taliban. So he was losing his dignity and his pride, his power, and everything, slapping by Taliban and just pulling his head, his hair. So this is the same, and it happened everywhere. Why men are not standing with women? At the same time, I have to say that there were so many men that are standing with women. For example, the university teacher, some activists, and the educator. So they were standing with women journalists, but they were badly beaten and they were arrested and they were punished and tortured. So that's why it is a big risk for men to stand with women. But there were some men that even though they stand with women, because men are the food bringer for their family. So if they can be arrested and put to the jail and torture, so who can feed their family? Even they can go to the street for the small cart to bring some vegetable to sell it and make some income for their family. But when they they will be at prison, no one can feed their family.
Of course. So I think I'm gonna wrap up because in this conversation you mentioned the history, you mentioned how corruption, but not just corruption, how the agreement between the US and the Taliban, the announcement of the withdrawal of the troops, and the morale of the army, all of this led to the collapse of potential peace. And you mentioned how women's rights are back issues. You mentioned how we need the UN to ensure women are in the room in the first place, and not to recognize the Taliban. And we need aid to actually reach those in need. So strong monitoring system, gender apartheid to be a crime. You gave us tips as well on the fact that sanctions should be imposed on leaders, not the population. What is, for you, how do you see the situation being solved? How do you see the Taliban being removed, people having access to their full rights? Is it by doing all of this, or is there anything else we should consider?
So one thing I forgot I want to share here with this plan of withdrawal. The main agenda was withdrawal. The United States was not thinking about the women's rights, what will be happen to the people of Afghanistan, and what's going on. What will be the outcome of this withdrawal? The whole strategy of the talk with Taliban was the agenda of withdrawal. And they wanted to withdraw from Afghanistan, and that's happened. Okay, yeah, if for the future, for the current situation, we want still this political pressure should be on Taliban, which is the recognition and also push. Taking them to the court as applying gender apartheid and the CEDA. First of all, the codifying or the gender apartheid is very, very, very important, and also according to that, pushing Taliban to the court and supporting the countries that they already started that initiative for the criminal court and international court of justice. So these are the tools that that push Taliban slowly to respect the women's rights.
Thank you so much for your time and for your insight and for providing us a roadmap onto what we should be doing in order to support Afghan women and girls and Afghan people in general amidst the Taliban takeover, and for everything you do, as Stephen just mentioned in the chat. And just so you know, this was recorded. We'll use it to spread the word among our 25,000 people in Atlas and to write it up and advocate for this. We are so thankful that you took an hour of your time to speak with us and to share your insights. So thank you very much, and we'll be in touch in the future again.
Thank you so much, Colombo, and I want to congratulate you for all your great work and for your strong network that you have been established, and my appreciation for all your member of your network. That is
and thank you for taking the time. We are in awe of everything you have done. Have a good day, and let's put pressure on the Taliban, as you said.
Thank you so much. You also have a great time.
Okay, bye.